Hi everyone, welcome back to Simple Things. Today we'll be looking at Sure, you have heard numerous stories about loved ones who have died and have come back to reassure surviving family members that the deceased is in heaven watching over them. How soothing these stories are in times of grief. As a newlywed, I lost my first child in stillbirth. I cannot count the many days and nights I literally lulled myself into a trance, hoping, praying for a similar visit of reassurance. Needless to say, none came. My baby was dead as nit, as we'd say in Jamaica. 4 years ago, my dear brother was brutally murdered in Jamaica. Wouldn't it be nice if you would visit us and tell us exactly who that evil monster was who put a single bullet to his brain? And what about my dad, who passed away peacefully just a month shy of 1 year ago? The fact that he was a devout Christian who died so peacefully as we stood around his bedside holding hands in prayer, watching as the doctor pulled the plug, is evidence that he is in heaven looking down on his family, right? And my nephew's wife. Certainly, someone who died while I was holding her hand and praying for her would come back to visit me with reassurance that her soul is okay, right? Weak, vulnerable humans who were completely defenseless even against their own death while they were alive are somehow felt to have a supernatural power in death. Even the vilest and most evil of men while alive are suddenly felt to become angels while dead. Clearly, something isn't adding up here. But what does the Bible teach about life after death? Or, in other words, the state of the dead? How can you tell it's your dead loved ones who actually comes back to visit you? In this video, we'll look briefly at this subject that has caused tremendous disparity, confusion, and even division in the Christian church. As this is a doctrinal topic that requires deep Bible studies, I cannot promise you'll have definitive answers after watching this video, but I can assure you confidently that if you use this video as a background from which to do your own prayerful research, the subject will become much clearer to you. Feel free to reach out through the links provided in the description box below this video if you would like to share with me in an in-depth study on the subject. And while we're at it, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel to keep up with my other interesting and informative videos. In the book of 1 Samuel chapter 28, the story is told of King Saul of Israel, against whom the Philistines had gathered an army. The battleground was set. Saul saw the host of Philistine troops and catch him afraid, and him heart start go boop boop. Saul start to pray, but him no get no answer from God. Verse 3 says, Now Samuel was dead, and all Israel had lamented him, and buried him in Ramah, even in his own city. And Saul had put away those that had familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land. So Saul asked him man them to find one Obia woman for him. They recommended the Witch of Endor. One night, Saul disguised himself in a costume and got down at the barnyard, the same Saul who did ban Obia. Okay, I got carried away a bit because the Bible is just way more interesting and clear in the Jamaican vernacular. Or in standard English, verse 7 says, Then Saul said unto his servants, Seek me a woman that hath a familiar spirit, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servants said unto him, Behold, there is a woman that hath a familiar spirit at Endor. Verse 8 continues, And he said, I pray thee, divine unto me by the familiar spirit, and bring me up whom I shall name unto thee. The saga continues with, For what sawest thou? And the woman said unto Saul, I saw gods ascending out of the earth. Verse 14, and he said unto her, What form is he of? And she said, An old man cometh up, and he is covered with a mantle. And Saul perceived that it was Samuel, and he stooped with his face to the ground and bowed himself. And I repeat, and Saul perceived that it was Samuel. Verse 15, and Samuel said to Saul, Why hast thou disquieted me to bring me up? So, the woman of Endor had a familiar spirit. What exactly is a familiar spirit, you might be asking? 1 Timothy 4 verse 1 refers to them as seducing spirits. Revelation 16 verses 13 and 14 calls them unclean spirits like frogs and spirits of devils working miracles. And 2 Corinthians 11 tells us that Satan transforms himself into an angel of light, while his angels transforms themselves into ministers of righteousness. Revelation 12 shows us how the devil was cast out of heaven with those angels that he deceived, 1/3 of the angelic host. Therefore, in light of the fact that Ezekiel 18 verse 20 states clearly that the soul that sinneth, it shall die, and Ecclesiastes 9 teaches clearly that the dead know not anything, are you willing to revisit the story of Saul and the Witch of Endor? What about other passages of scripture that seem to teach otherwise? The Bible cannot lie. Besides, the Bible explains itself. So, please feel free to do your own study and share your findings in the comment section. Now, the next time the devil, through his familiar spirits or demons, manifests himself in the form of your dead loved one, will you be able to identify exactly what's going on?